So grab some popcorn, grab a beer, have a seat. And today I'm joined by Mike Levans of Peerless Media. So
Great. Well, Karen, I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You and I have done this a couple times already, different shows,
We
and it's
have.
been very successful. And
But
I've always
today we do it over wine.
Yeah. Hey,
So
cheers. Yeah. Well, thank you so
cheers.
much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Well, Karen, there's a lot of buzz on the show floor for all the obvious reasons this year. So much is happening in fulfillment. So much is happening in the warehouse in DC. And so many end users and attendees here are under a lot of pressure. What would you under a lot of pressure to finally sort of transform their operations?
Yeah.
I think a lot of folks are here with that charge. So what would you say, as we kick off our conversation, Karen, what would you say would be one of the biggest fulfillment challenges that you're seeing inside of DC, warehouse and DC operations when it comes to distribution, fulfillment, omni-channel fulfillment, et cetera?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge continues to be driven by labor as a root cause, the availability of it, the availability to hire it, the ability to retain it, it being human beings,
Absolutely,
of course.
right.
And they seem to have a mind of their own, those humans.
Yeah.
So I think it really does still boil down to labor, and the pressure continues to mount year over year because we're seeing that e-commerce as a percentage of retail continues to grow 10 or 12% every
Absolutely.
year over year. And of course what that does is it pushes the onus back up into the warehouse to fulfill all this merchandise. And so that just exacerbates the overall labor issue. But fortunately, over that same period, over the last decade or so, we've seen technology emerge, largely driven by the automotive industry. Technology emerge that's finally come within reach financially, and we've had a decade to work on software to develop the smarts to power that technology, to put robots into warehouses. And so what we're seeing is humans are still critical to the operation, but now they can be made superhuman by being powered by robots.
Absolutely. And that was such an interesting challenge up front, wasn't it, with the robotics industry in general, with the fear of it replacing as opposed to being a collaborative type of approach. So let's talk a little bit more about collaborative robotics and where that fits in to the bigger picture. How do you define collaborative robotics from your unique position?
Yeah, so, I guess the baseline definition is these are robots that work together with humans to accomplish a task. And in this case, it really is a function of taking a divide and conquer type of approach. We're taking the tasks that robots do best and letting the robots do them, and the tasks that humans do best and assigning those to the humans.
Absolutely.
And not only are we dividing up the labor, we're literally dividing the humans and the robots from each other by allowing them to operate independently. And as you and I have talked before, this is something that is both fundamental to our entire concept of operation, but it's also a key, this paradigm, to driving the levels of productivity that we're seeing.
Absolutely.
If we require that the human and the robot always travel around together, then both components, both partners in this collaboration are limited by the slowest partner.
Right.
So the worker is the fastest when it comes to making the pick. The robot is the fastest when it comes to traveling, and we should let them each do what they do best.
Right. So that's how you have gone into the market and clearly differentiated yourselves against a lot of your competitors in the marketplace by taking that. Now, let's talk about some of the stuff you're sharing here at the event. We had chatted a little earlier today about the new 3PL Accelerator program. I think that's one of the areas that the team here is spending a lot of time on and sharing with the 3PLs who are here, obviously, in the market. Tell me a little bit more about that. What are some of the nuts and bolts to how that program is working?
Yeah, I'm really excited about this. Regardless of what we call any program we have, our customers really are much more partners to us than, it's not a transactional relationship. We're always working with our customers to have a long-term relationship, and there's a lot of give and take in there. Our product reflects the needs of our customers, and our customers are really full partners in the activity of getting the robots out in the field. But what makes 3PLs unique among our customers is that they operate almost as a channel, if you will. They are constantly adding new customers of their own to the mix, and the robots really enable them to differentiate their own businesses.
Sure, absolutely.
So I think a lot of people, when they first start looking at robotics automation, they're looking at cutting costs, at taking those operating expenses and driving them down. And 3PLs, of course, care about that tremendously, but what's even more important is not just cutting the cost on the bottom line, but how do I drive growth to the top line? And so we put programs in place to allow them to accelerate their penetration of their own customers, to go after new customer pursuits, to streamline the way they're able to win new business. And we've done that through a series of actions. I mean, we as you know, we brand the robots for both our customers and their customers. So they're getting their brand out in front of their customers. And we will always work hard to make sure that we're helping them in whatever way we can for the new pursuits, whether it means providing them robots in their innovation centers to really underscore their technology vision, or to provide robots at isolated events that they're doing on behalf of their customers. But now we've come out with a set of tools too, sales enablement tools, so that they have co-branded collateral that they can take into customer sites. And we've even come out with an inflatable robot.
Yeah, you mentioned that earlier. That's a great idea, by the way.
So we'll ship working robots to functions that our customers undertake, but at the same time, they can literally pack a robot in their briefcase or their suitcase, and when they get to one of their prospect sites, they can inflate it, they can show their customer what it looks like to have these robots in the warehouse. They can start putting the customers' shipping containers and totes on it. So everybody really gets a feel for the scale of this.
What's coming our way, this is how it looks, this is how it feels. That's often so important. That's why shows like Modex and ProMat are so important to come and see.
Absolutely.
How it is in action. So let's talk a little bit more about the accelerator program in terms of integration, time it might take, uploading or getting a new customer sort of ramped up, or a 3PL ramped up. And what's the time frame look like?
Well, the nice thing is that by and large this is a marketing program, so there's no technology integration per se. Clearly if we're going to do a real deployment, we have to integrate our robotics solution with our customer's WMS, and that typically takes anywhere from, say, 3 to 6 weeks. And that's the long pole on the tent there. But for this program, we're arming our partners with a set of tools so that they can go out and engage in new customer pursuits without there having to have been any technology involved. They don't have to get their IT staff involved in this. We don't have to get engineering involved. But what it does is it lays the groundwork for setting the customer expectations, and that really speeds the time to closure of these sales.
Now, what about the support after everything's up and running? What kind of a role are you playing in the support?
So support for that, again, we always work in concert with our partners on that. And in this case, it's not just our 3PL partners, but as well our WMS partners. And we're typically, it's a shared responsibility for support. We have terrific relationships with High Jump, now Kerber, JDA, now Blue Yonder, and Manhattan, now still Manhattan. We're waiting for the other shoe to drop on that one, I guess.
Absolutely.
And we have relationships with them where they will take on the level of support for their cloud components and so forth. We'll take on the level of support for our robotics side, and we really do coordinate very closely with them to make sure we're giving our customers a sort of 360-degree level of support.
Right, and that's an ongoing process,
obviously.
For them.
And it's not just about supporting things in case of a problem, but it's also about working together for continuous improvement. So we'll work very closely with our WMS provider customers to make sure that when customers come up with new ideas for how they can improve their business, or we jointly or severally see things in their warehouse that could be improved, we work together to say, here's how the WMS can contribute to the solution, or here's how Locus can contribute, or even here's how the customer can. Sometimes it's small, very low-tech things a customer can do that are going to have dramatic upticks and improvement.
Just some pure communication as to what's
Absolutely.
needed, and it's going to help both sides. So let's talk a little bit more about on the accelerator program in terms of, how would the 3PL then be able then, actually maybe ask this, what would you say is the key benefit to the 3PL, and then what is the key benefit to that 3PL's customer at the end of the day? What would you say are the biggest benefits to both sides?
Great question. It's interesting. Many of our 3PL customers have an open book relationship with their tenants, with their end customers. So it means that whenever the 3PL adopts a new technology in the warehouse, they get approvals from their customer, and they're passing the cost of that solution through on a cost-plus basis. Now, because the Locus solution really drives very high ROIs, in many cases, most cases, the costs are going down.
Better? Okay.
In some cases, our 3PL customers are actually taking a reduction on top-line revenue.
Makes sense, right?
To sell through their customers, but they believe that it's going to be a better overall outcome for everybody involved. But in this case, not only are they streamlining the costs and passing through streamlined costs to their customers, we're also giving them additional tools to win that business in the first place. Right. So it's about a cost savings as well as about a revenue growth opportunity.
Gotcha. So obviously, too, Locus and your team will be working with the 3PL to help push that value down through to make them even more attractive as a partner. Yeah. Absolutely.
And I'll tell you, I can't tell you, but I'll tell you.
Sure.
We will actually have an announcement in the next couple of days. Okay. It's under embargo now, but so I'll share with you offline here, where we're announcing a vastly expanded relationship with a customer.
Okay.
Where they're going to be putting in many more sites this year and many more robots, and they're using it as a standard part of their new customer pursuit.
Right. So, fantastic. That's great news.
Very exciting.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about, we write about it quite a bit across all of our publications at Peerless, and we're always trying to push people over the fence, right? So people understand now, they're starting to see robotics in action. They're starting to see the difference between what the different OEMs and the different robotic makers are able to do, and the different approaches to it. To that person who's on, that operations person who's on the fence, what are some messages, or how would you like to, how could you help push them over the fence a bit and just open up a little bit more to what the benefits can possibly be? What would be that message to those folks?
Innovate or die.
Yeah,
Mike.
right. Yeah, exactly. That's kind of how we push it, but it sounds easier than it is.
No, it's true. I think now I can say that tongue in cheek, and it's not all that controversial. I think a few years ago, people were still looking at this and thinking it might be a little edgy, it might be a little bit experimental. Right. There may have been some people staying on the sidelines as they sort of looked to see whether something was going to be viable or successful. And I think now what we're seeing, where we have some of our customers going on their, not just their second or third, but their fourth or fifth or 10th or 11th sites with us. Right. I think what they're now seeing is that this is technology that works. It's not just the technology, but it's the overall solution that works. It's here to stay. It's trustworthy, and not only in a positive way does it support what you're trying to do, but I think there are now people who are feeling this real sense of urgency that if they don't adopt it, then they're putting themselves at a competitive disadvantage.
Absolutely.
And I think that sort of FOMO, but it's not FOMO in a sort of social media driven way. Right. There's a legitimate reason to think that your business is going to be at a competitive disadvantage, both from a cost perspective as well as from a revenue growth perspective, if you don't adopt. And I think over the last few years, we've seen that shifting of the balance from where the customer was thinking, I can wait, to I really can't wait anymore. Exactly.
And the more, just like anything else, it's human nature, right? You want to see something up and running. You want to see what the benefit statement is. And those early adopters are the ones who are really going to come out ahead.
Well, we now have 50 sites.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So there's plenty of opportunity for people to see firsthand what it looks like, get feedback, candid feedback from existing customers to see how it's working for them. And so now I think people see there's really no excuse for waiting any longer. And then we make it really easy. The threshold for entering into this engagement is so small. With our robots as a service model, you're not writing a check for $1 million up front. You're just You're paying your robots as they show up for work every day.
The other major hurdle that was early on needed to be handled, right? When
And
everyone was labor being a little bit afraid of it taking the job, and it's not ever going to be the case. What are the expense? What's the expense? How do I know this is going to work? I don't want to be the one who made that decision, doesn't pay off, and then dang, I might be out of position.
No,
because,
you're right.
It was really, really tough to do.
And people get that. They pay their workers for showing up at work,
right?
And now they pay the robots for showing up.
Yeah.
And our robots have perfect attendance.
And so much is happening on the software side now too with robotics, right? It's almost like a robotic operating system, right? There are terms being tossed around and trying to be coined right now. In one of our publications, we have a fantastic piece running this month on the evolution of that control system.
Yep.
Where do you see that going? Or how do you guys approach that control?
It's interesting because Melanie Wise of Fetch made a point last week that one of the sparks that started the robot revolution in the warehouses was the ready availability of open source software with ROS, Robot Operating System.
Right,
I think what we've seen though over the last decade, and certainly over the last 5 or 6 years, is that proprietary intelligence and development has been overlaid on that. So what started out as an open source solution and was made available to create an entire ecosystem of people and to generate people, generate workers in the field, has now evolved into more proprietary technology so that my solution operates far differently from that of other robotics companies. And it means that we're able to pursue these paradigms because we had that foundational layer of open source software. And now I think that flywheel is spinning pretty fast, and we're going to start to see further differentiation over the
It's really the next frontier.
5 years. Absolutely.
And the different partnerships, and you already have established yourselves with great partners already, and those are going to continue to evolve. That's really going to be something fun to watch over the next few years. Absolutely. Anybody have any questions for Karen while she's...
Oh, have a question.
No?
Have a beer.
She's on a roll. So Karen, before we kind of wrap things up with our little fireside chat, any key takeaways in terms of, especially in the accelerator program? I know it's a target for the 3PL market, obviously. Any key takeaways for anybody out in the audience today who is considering going in that direction with your team?
Don't wait.
Yep.
Really don't wait. I think if Modex teaches us anything, we're here and we're now, we're seeing the crowds build, and I think that's a testament to the fantastic work that MHI does.
Absolutely.
In building that sense of community. But 4 years ago, we were here at Modex in 2016, and we were a tiny little 10-foot by 30-foot booth, way the heck on the back of the hall.
In the back, yeah, I remember that.
And next year at ProMat, we'll have a booth that's 5,500 square feet, and it's because people are seeing the value in this. That's growing businesses like mine, I would say, you really hesitate at your peril.
Right.
Now, having said that, it's prudent to make sure that there's a good fit in the solution, but rest assured there is very likely a fit for somebody out there, and the key is to find the right one.
Absolutely, and that's another thing we push across too. Not every solution is. It's not
one size fits all.
It's not one size fits all. It's usually tailor-made to a particular situation, and that's the way it's the way it has to work.
Yep.
So absolutely. Well, Karen, thank you so much.
Thank
this
you
has
so
been
much,
great.
Mike.
I think it's our third time doing this. This is great.
Well, let's keep
Enjoy
going.
it.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Karen. Thank you.